Thank you very much, and a very warm welcome from my side to all of you at the ALM Summit 2021. Unfortunately, again, we are meeting only virtually this year due to the ongoing global situation, but we'll try to make the best out of it. And hopefully you enjoyed all the sessions so far, which were been going on for the last 2.5 days. And hopefully you'll also enjoy this session. My name is Ben Schneider. I'm from the Customer Communications and Relations team, and I'd like to talk about the topic of what's the right ALM solution for you. And with this session, which is sort of an updated session which we run since last year already, we continuously update the content based on the new developments in the various tools. I'd like to give you some food for thought on what could be some decision points or what could be some ideas on following the ALM strategy and what is the right ALM solution to choose for the future. So before we go there, of course, I always have to remind you to our legal disclaimer. If you have some minutes, then please take a read through that. The most important information out here is if I do any forward-looking statements, please keep in mind that this might change. And so that's the main reason why we have to share this with you. Before we start, of course, you might have seen this slide sometimes. If you're on social media, especially on Twitter, please use the ALM Summit hashtag to share your thoughts. Also on Twitter, share some nice screenshots, share some comments on the sessions. And also, if you're in the event app, there's also a Twitter wall where you can see tweets from other people. If you're not on Twitter directly, you get some sort of, let's say, combined information from Twitter on the Twitter wall in the event app. And also, as already announced, if you have any questions, please use the Q&A pod in Zoom. I'll be looking at the questions at the end of the presentation. As I'm the only speaker, there will be no one else answering questions during the session, so I'll check that after the presentation. Before we really start, and this slide is something you have, hopefully all of you have seen this maybe even more than one time. This is the ALM portfolio of SAP. And with our 3 major strategic solutions, which of course is famous and well-known SAP Solution Manager. It has been around for 20 years, as announced in the keynote on Tuesday, so we can celebrate quite a lot this year. It's our standard solution for hybrid solutions with, let's say, an on-premise focus, and it's a mature ALM tool. Sometimes we call it the Swiss Army knife for ALM. So if you are an on-premise or on-premise centric customers or have a hybrid solution with an on-premise focus, then Solution Manager might be the tool of choice for many years for you, but also still is the tool of choice for this type of scenario. The second one, and I see there's a little error on the slide, SAP Focus Run is already available in version 3.0, so I'll have to correct that. Sorry for that. SAP Focus Run turns 5 this year, so this is our solution for large-scale service providers or customers who have needs in monitoring in operations, which go beyond what Solution Manager can offer. And it's a little bit of a special solution. It's not included in our maintenance offerings as Solution Manager and also SAP Cloud ALM are. It's a separate price list item. It's a, let's say, a specialized focused tool for operations on a high-end scale. Last but not least, we have SAP Cloud ALM. You should have heard of that, at least during the event, because this is our newest kid on the block, our newest addition to the family. 1 year ago, we launched it to the public as a cloud-centric ALM solution. The strong focus currently is on improving and, let's say, extending Cloud ALM from a functional perspective and making it also available for on-premise customers for hybrid scenarios, but with a focus clearly on cloud only or on cloud-centric customers. So that's the let's say the offerings which we have. This session, which I'll do now, will focus on SAP Solution Manager and SAP Cloud ALM. So to discuss a little bit let's say the ideas behind which one to choose, or what could be some reasons which one to choose. We'll leave out Focused Run for this session. The simple reason is that Focused Run could be run in any scenario beside whatever you choose. Either Solution Manager or Cloud ALM. And again, Focused Run is, let's say, still a special solution for service providers or for customers with very large landscapes, which have different needs than we can fulfill with the other tools. So we'll have a look at SAP Solution Manager and SAP Cloud ALM mainly in this session. We tried to sort of derive some standard scenarios where most of our customers hopefully can find themselves in somewhere. Of course, there's a lot of different scenarios out there. There's a lot of different setups in organizations. There's a lot of different technical setups in SAP landscapes at our customers. But I think with those four use cases, we sort of covered the main use cases most of our customers are in. These are sort of the starting points for trying to find or trying to make your way into the future, trying to make a decision, what can be our future in terms of ALM. When we start very simple on top, if a customer has an on-premise centric solution and has no plans to change that, so you have a large or fairly large on-premise footprint, you maybe have some, let's say, cloud solutions also in place, which we then would call hybrid, but the majority of your solution is still an on-premise solution, and there's no plans in the strategic or in the strategy for the next years to change that. This is a fully valid scenario. Many of our customers do use this, and then still SAP Solution Manager would be the recommended ALM solution. But there might be some twists to it. I'll come to that again later. But just to keep it very general for now, if you are an on-premise centric customer and you have no plans to change that, then Solution Manager, at least for now, would be the recommended tool. Maybe you're using it already for many years and everything is fine with that. The second use case is vice versa. If you are a cloud-centric customer or cloud-only customer, then of course SAP Solution Manager as an on-premise centric tool would not be the right recommendation for you, because it wouldn't make sense to implement an on-premise centric tool in a pure cloud scenario. So of course, obviously, the recommendation from our side here in a cloud-centric or cloud-only scenario for ALM would clearly be SAP Cloud ALM. Also, again, later on, we'll have some more information about that, some more thoughts about this, some more maybe little twists and tweaks as well. Then we have some special or more special setups. We have many customers out there who operate a very small SAP solution, maybe only one system or maybe only one cloud solution, and they're fine with that, they're happy with that. And with that, over time, our recommendation changed a little bit. So in the past, when you even only had one system landscape, maybe a 3-tier system landscape, for ALM, you would need Solution Manager, which is quite a heavy invest for a very small landscape, maybe also with a very small team behind the landscape operating this landscape. So our recommendation here for customers who are small, or not the customers, but their landscape is rather small, our recommendation for ALM would clearly also be SAP Cloud ALM, because with Cloud ALM, you have a very, very lightweight footprint. There's no big efforts in setting up the tool. There's no big efforts in configuring the tool. And for many scenarios, also an on-premise solution, this can work very well as an ALM solution. And there's no need to set up Solution Manager, which would be a fairly large project for itself. And then last but not least, the last use case here, and I think this is a use case many of our customers are already, let's say, approaching or are already in there somehow, or will be coming to in the next few years, is moving to cloud. And moving to the cloud, we learned from discussions with customers, and I think that's fairly obvious here, moving to cloud has very different meanings at our customers. So some customers mean when they move to cloud, they move to really to pure cloud native scenarios, like SaaS scenarios, for example. Other customers, they move their IT from their own data center to a hosted data center or to a hosted infrastructure at their partner. They would also call that somehow moving to the cloud, because they would operate differently with their solution afterwards. So there's different flavors of moving to cloud there. And what we, of course, then will need to do here is to follow you in this direction, and also to offer a corresponding move with our ALM scenario. So here, and that's maybe a little generic for now, but we'll dive a little bit more into that in the future of the session. It really depends. Solution Manager or Cloud ALM, the direction clearly, also if you remember the keynote from Tuesday of the ALM Summit, the direction clearly of our recommendation clearly will go into Cloud ALM even more. But there's some things which need to be considered, which I like to elaborate in this session as well. So these are the 4 use cases which we identified as being relevant for the majority of our customers. There might be some special cases. If yes, then please reach out to us, discuss these use cases with us. But in general, these are, let's say, the 4 use cases which we find fitting very well to the scenarios at most of our customers. Now, moving to cloud, or let's say cloud versus on-premise, is not only a discussion which you have in regards to ALM, which you have in regards to tools. So if you're on-premise centric or cloud centric, there's also different things to consider which go far beyond the tooling itself. There's also, let's say, some different ways of working, or there's some different mindsets behind. And on that slide, I'd like to briefly give you some ideas on how we see the different ways of working in cloud versus on-premise, and also the different, or some different mindsets, because this again should be considered by you if you try to carve out your strategy, to design your strategy, which ALM tool to use. And if you look on the top of this table here, we have the different use cases. On the left hand side, you'll see on-premise and private cloud. We sort of consider that also from the color, let's say as an on-premise use case. And on the right-hand side, you would have a public cloud use case. So this is meant you and your solutions are rather on-premise or on-premise centric, or rather going into public cloud scenarios. On the left-hand side, you have from top to bottom, you have some different things you do in your landscape which are related to application lifecycle management. And let's start from the top. So looking at the implementation approach in your landscape. So how do you implement changes inside your landscape, rather it being like new processes or changed processes, or also changes like maintaining your software, maintaining your landscape, etc. So there's a lot of things going on, always some things to do and to change and to implement. In an on-premise centric scenario, at least from our ALM tools, how the mindset is behind that, the implementation approach is clearly following a fit gap scenario. This, of course, is resembled in Solution Manager, especially in Focus Build, where you have the fit gap approach more or less implemented in the tool, and also in the workflows, in the processes inside the tool. So our way of doing implementations in an on-premise centric or in a private cloud scenario is clearly by supporting you in a fit gap approach. In a public cloud environment, and this then sort of resembles to SAP Cloud ALM, the implementation approach is a fit to standard approach, because in a cloud focused environment, you have a different mindset. At least that's what we assume, and that's also what we build in our tools, that in a cloud-based scenario, you want to be as close to the standard as possible when implementing processes, when implementing scenarios or solutions. Therefore, our tools, or our tool, in this case, SAP Cloud ALM, supports a fit to standard approach in this case for implementing, and not fit to gap as we would do on premise. So there's a different mindset behind that. There's a different way of working behind that. And that's also something you need to consider, because if you would, for example, move from on-premise to cloud, or on-premise centric to cloud centric, not only the tool will change, also the way of working, how you work with the tool will change, how your teams work with the tool needs to change, and they need to be trained accordingly. So there's also more behind that than just logging onto another tool and doing ALM. So that's what I want to sort of bring into focus here. The same goes for operations. So running your solutions, operating your systems and solutions in an on-premise centric scenario, you have the full control, the full overview, and full access to all layers of your environment. This starts on the very bottom level, on system level, technical operations, technical monitoring, fixing issues in operations, and goes to the application layer and to the process layer. So in an operations approach, you, or maybe the company you have outsourced your operations to, but in general, you as an owner of the whole solution have full control and full ownership of all aspects of your solution. Again, if you look at the public cloud scenario, this is different because you do not need to care, and sometimes you cannot even care about, let's say, the lowest layer, which would be the system layer, because this would be fully handled by your systems operator or by your provider. In the case of SAP Cloud ALM, this would be SAP. So there's also, let's say, a different approach to operations, which means sometimes in an on-premise scenario, you have full control, which can be great and fully valid, but of course adds an additional layer of complexity also for your teams and for your workload. And in a cloud-based scenario, you have full control, of course, over your processes. You have, let's say, most control or a high degree of control about the application. But for example, maintaining and updating the application will be done by SAP. So there's also different ways of working with the tools behind that, which, let's say, provides a lot of benefits in a cloud scenario because you don't have to take care of some things, but at the same time, it takes some sort of control off of your teams, which needs to be considered as well in the end. From a release schedule, I think I briefly sort of mentioned this already here. In an on-premise centric scenario, you are in full control again. Very blank or frankly speaking, you have to make sure that your ALM solution is up to date, which of course also contains of having a maintenance process in place, applying software updates, support packages, and so on, testing, doing all of that also for your ALM solution and of course for the rest of your solution as well. But again, this is the idea of having full control, but at the same time having the full responsibility. And in the public cloud environment, this is different because, as I said already, updating your ALM tool, you don't have to take care about that. This will be done by SAP, and you will just get notified that there's new features available. And then you have to just keep up working with your teams that they understand the new features and work with the new features. So that's also a different way of how you run your landscape, which again will take some load off of you, but at the same time will take some control off of you as well. So this needs to be part of your considerations when thinking about which tool to use. What do we need to do? What do we want to do? Do we need to have this type of control? Do we have the resources to have this type of control? And also to maybe just to benefit from not having to take care of this, which can help you, especially in environments with very little resources. From a data center perspective, technically speaking, an on-premise scenario, and here in this case, it's really the on-premise scenario, is your own data center. That's where the hardware and the software is located. This might be your own or your provider, but it's full control. You can sort of walk there and have a look at your hardware, if you like. The private cloud is a little bit different in this scenario. This is already in sort of an infrastructure as a service or a hosting scenario. And the public cloud, of course, it's fully running on hyperscalers. So also this is important when it comes to how your operation strategy overall will be inside your company. So with that slide, I just wanted to share some thoughts which are behind the tools and which go beyond the pure decision of which tool would I like to have or would I like to use for application lifecycle management. And now let's dive a little bit deeper into some recommendations already. So what we think might be the right approach. And you might have seen this slide also in the keynote. From an SAP perspective, our flagship, of course, is SAP S/4HANA. And in SAP S/4HANA, there's different flavors which you can choose from. Again, of course, fully according to your strategy or fully in line with what you need. And if we start on the left-hand side, we have more like an as-a-service approach, which is SAP S/4HANA Cloud, which is a full cloud-based SaaS software as a service offering. And yeah, that's fully cloud ahead. And this is also, if you have a look at our recent numbers, which we just published, this is growing a lot. And many customers are choosing SAP S/4HANA Cloud as a cloud native, as a cloud-based scenario, as the core or the heart of their cloud strategy. Then we also offer SAP S/4HANA Cloud in private edition, which still is some sort of an as a service offering, but which is your, let's say, private edition of an S4 offering, which will provide more flexibility in terms of modifications and in terms of well, running and operating the system, but still is in a cloud scenario. And of course, we also offer SAP S/4HANA on-premise, which would be the standard, or let's call it traditional way of operating an on-premise system, a modern ERP, where you have full control inside your own data centers or with existing hosting partners. So that's sort of the range which we offer from SAP. And that's also the range which we need to cover from our ALM perspective. So with the next slide, we had a lot of internal discussions and what we can or what we want to recommend for these different scenarios here. And because as you see, this is also going across all different cloud scenarios, from public cloud to private cloud to the traditional on-premise setup. And what I want to make you aware of here on this slide is that it has the year on top. And this is clearly something which is in a constant, let's say, discussion also on our side, because this recommendation will definitely change over the next years. But for now, that's what we wanted to share with you if you are now in, let's say, one of those scenarios, or maybe already starting a transition into from an on-premise centric into a cloud-based or cloud-centric scenario. Which ALM tool to choose from. And we have the different scenarios on top. Of course, they're sort of generalized, standing for the overall target where you want to go. So you want to go for public cloud, you want to go for private cloud, or you want to go or stay for on-premise. And on the left-hand side, we have different use cases which apply to your landscape or to this transition, which apply also to the change if you already go there or if you want to go there. So when we look at the left-hand side for a conversion, so you want to do a conversion or transition, for example, to SAP S/4HANA public cloud, there's nothing we can help you with from an ALM perspective here, because this, from the overall product from SAP S/4HANA, this is not a supported use case. So this would be a, so transitioning to S/4HANA cloud is not offered in the whole setup. So this would be more or less a greenfield approach to bring SAP S/4HANA Cloud into your landscape. But if you do a conversion or a transition into S/4HANA Cloud Private Edition, and this is where it now gets a little bit, where you see the different colors and the recommendations, where we can only tell you it really depends on what the choice of ALM tool for this scenario is. And this depends on different factors, and I would like to go a little bit into this here. If you are already in the middle of a transition and Solution Manager is in place, it's part of your landscape, you have your processes in there and so on, then we would strongly recommend you not to change horses during the race. So please use Solution Manager for this scenario until the transition is done. But if you haven't started yet, or maybe not using Solution Manager, you could also evaluate if SAP Cloud ALM is already ready for the task. And there's this little asterisk, and you see those two links down below that table, which will take you to two different resources which we provide. The first one is the supported solutions for Cloud ALM. So in the first link, you will see which SAP solutions are supported by SAP Cloud ALM in which use case. And the second one will take you to the roadmap to the upcoming function, so you can see what we plan to deliver in Cloud ALM. So this decision, it really depends on the actual situation where we are, and we are not able to give a generic recommendation for this scenario, because this depends on your existing setup in your organization, in your IT company, and also on your strategy. But what we would like to share with you is just that you keep in mind, please make sure that you use the right one. So if you already have Solution Manager, then maybe it's the best idea to keep using it. If you haven't started yet, maybe it's the best idea to check out what Cloud ALM can do. And if it can do everything what you need, because it will grow from a functional perspective in the future. But if it's already ready for what you need, then why not choose Cloud ALM? If you go to the right-hand side, if you do a conversion or a transition to S/4HANA on-premise, or also from the business suite or to the business suite in an on-premise centric scenario, then clearly Solution Manager is the right ALM tool to choose. If you now look at the different use case, or at the next use case, which would be implementing, so implementing software, implementing changes inside your landscape, that's a classical ALM scenario. So that's what we do for almost 20 years, supporting you in implementing your processes and your solutions. For an S/4HANA public cloud, the recommendation for the ALM tool of choice is clearly Cloud ALM. That's very simple. I said that in the beginning as already. We cannot recommend Solution Manager here as an on-premise tool for our cloud offering. That would not make sense at all. So here, clearly, Cloud ALM is the right tool of choice. Again, for S/4HANA Cloud Private Edition, it's the same as I said before. This really depends on your actual situation, where you are in. Are you already in the transition? Haven't you started yet? Can the tool like Cloud ALM do what you need it to do? So this might be the toughest decision to run. And for the business suite, for on-premise, of course, Solution Manager is also the tool of choice for implementing, at least for now. For operations, running your systems, running your solutions, monitoring, maintaining that everything is going well. For public cloud, it's very simple. Cloud ALM already has a quite mature operations part. So there's really a lot already there. So again, not only because it's a cloud scenario and we need the cloud tool, but also from a functional perspective in operations, the clear recommendation for public cloud, for operating public cloud scenarios is S/4HANA Cloud, is SAP Cloud ALM. For the private edition, operations can also be managed with Cloud ALM. As I said, the operations functionality is quite mature already. And for the business suite, and this is let's say, a little special use case, you can also use SAP Cloud ALM for operating your SAP S/4HANA on-premise. That's possible. And we will sort of extend this hybrid use case in the future. But the major message, or the most important message here, is if you are an on-premise customer, but you would like to go for operations, then Cloud ALM could also be the tool of choice. As I said, it's a more lightweight tool. In Solution Manager, you have all the possibilities, but this also always implies setup efforts or configuration efforts. With Cloud ALM, these efforts are much lower. So it could be, and that's something we only can sort of share with you as food for thought. It could be interesting for you to use SAP Cloud ALM for operating your on-premise centric landscape. Having said that, of course, we don't forget SAP Focused Run. As I said in the beginning, we here focus on Cloud ALM and Solution Manager, but of course, Focused Run is a fully valid choice for system or service providers, or also for customers with large landscapes. It would then run beside either which tool you choose for your major ALM operations. I have a little bit more detail in what we would recommend this year, what we recommend right now for implementing the private edition. And let's keep this very short, because many of those details on the slide I already mentioned in a different context. So from a design perspective, in Cloud ALM, as I said, the focus is clearly on SAP standard processes. It comes with SAP content, in the future also with partner content, but the idea is to have standard processes which you implement as close to the standard as possible. Versus in Solution Manager, Solution Manager with Focus Build will support you in doing whatever you need to do from a design approach, with multiple projects, with doing maintenance in your landscape, fully flexible, but at the same time, let's say a lot of things that can be done or need to be done. From a build perspective, that's the same. SAP Cloud ALM clearly has a fit to standard approach. We want to ensure you, or to encourage you to implement standardized processes, versus Solution Manager clearly has this, again, fully flexible focus of development-driven projects, which might also include a lot of custom code, which might include retrofitting your landscape from different tracks and so on. So again, that's the really major difference here is standardized versus more individual or flexible approach. In testing, in Cloud ALM, we currently support manual testing. As announced in the keynote, there will be automated testing also coming for Cloud ALM in the near future. With Solution Manager, we already support the full-blown manual and automated test offerings, which we have, including the Tricentis automation, but also our own CBTA and other tools. So again, we still have, let's say, a rather focused or rather small footprint in Cloud ALM versus the full flexible scope in Solution Manager. For deployment, we currently offer deployment orchestration for Cloud and ABAP in Cloud ALM. As also announced briefly in the keynote, this will also change. This will be enhanced in Cloud ALM. For Solution Manager, most of you will know that as well. There's a full release management, which is coupled with the enhanced change and transport system. There's basically every technology which you can manage for deployment, for transports, by doing workflow control, transporting, and so on and so forth. So if you are in the way of implementing S/4HANA Cloud Private Edition, and that's referring to the slide before, these are also some things you need to consider when choosing the right ALM tool. What's the way you want to work? What's the way your team needs? Or what's the way also your team can support best, rather a standard-based approach or rather the full scope and flexibility of SAP Solution Manager? And very simply speaking, it also depends on the gravity of your solution. And that's, I think, what I said in the beginning. It really depends. So the choice of which ALM tool to use really depends on where the gravity of your solution is. In an on-premise centric scenario, you would right now, with some of the changes or details I just mentioned, you would have a look for Solution Manager in a, let's say, on-premise, in a public cloud or in a public in a cloud-centric scope or a gravity of your solution, we would recommend checking out Cloud ALM. But there are still some, let's say, limitations from a functional perspective. So Cloud ALM might not support the full scope of what you need yet. But be assured, Cloud ALM will grow over the next years. There's a strong roadmap, so please check that out on the links which I shared on the slide before, or also on the SAP Roadmap Viewer, where you will find the roadmap for Cloud ALM. So this will be heavily enhanced over time. For example, just to mention one from the keynote of Michael Klöffer, there was the announcement of enabling Cloud ALM for, let's say, process modeling also, which we couldn't do before, which of course in Solution Manager is one of the key scenarios in the whole process management area. So what I would like to share with you, or what I would like to emphasize again here, is that the tool of choice, or the choice which you would like to make, really depends on where you are from your gravity of the solution. It's rather on-premise or rather cloud, and where you want to go. And at the same time, where you want to go implies to check which tool can support you the best in terms of functionality, in terms of supported solutions, and also in, let's say, other considerations which might be important. Like if you go cloud only, then an on-premise centric ALM tool doesn't make sense. So these are some of the thoughts which I would like to share with you, which need to be considered for choosing the right ALM tool. And what we think, but this might be different at many of our customers, there will be some sort of tipping point sooner or later. If you follow a cloud strategy, if you would like to move the gravity of your solution, then there will be some sort of tipping point. But this is not related to the ALM tool only, which means you don't do the decision of going to Cloud ALM when you have used Solution Manager before, but the rest of your solution stays where it is. Maybe this might make sense in some scenarios, but overall, there will be most likely an IT strategy in place. And if this IT strategy implies going from on-premise centric to cloud centric, then our tool, or the ALM tool, needs to follow that strategy. And at one point in time, you will do a sort of move to Cloud ALM or cut over to Cloud ALM. But this will, and this is something which we also discuss with customers currently, this might also result in a scenario that you will run some sort of parallel ALM tools for a period of time. When you're transitioning, you might be already doing some stuff in operations in Cloud ALM, and you will still be running Solution Manager for implementations, for example. So this is also a scenario which we will go into more detail in the future, where we will share more and more detailed information in the future on how these scenarios could look like, how a transition could look like, because of course these questions they come a lot, and especially when customers move to the cloud, these questions are fully valid, and we will share more information with you in the future on this topic. One other recommendation I can share with you, and I had this briefly on one of the slides before, is if you are eager to check out Cloud ALM, if you maybe already want to go to the cloud, then one strategy or one scenario could be that you use SAP Cloud ALM for operations. Because as I said in the beginning, it's fairly mature already from the functional spectrum or from the functionality which is available. So what you could do is you could use Cloud ALM and use it for operating your systems, because especially if you haven't invested a lot in operations in Solution Manager, for example, in the past. So if you do not use business process monitoring, if you do not use a large scale application operations, job monitoring, whatever there is in Solution Manager, but if you need to do so, or if you're interested in doing so, because again, Cloud ALM is fairly lightweight to set up. You can easily start setting up operations in Cloud ALM for your solutions. And this could either bring you benefits in operating, because if you're not using Solution Manager operations before, then you have the benefit of having a very powerful but lightweight operation solution at the same time. Or this could reduce efforts, especially when you move to cloud, reduce the effort in maintaining your ALM platform. So this is also something I would like you just to consider as a possibility, that you can go to Cloud ALM for operations, but you could still use Solution Manager, for example, for doing your project work, for doing your implementations for a specific period of time. For example, once SAP Cloud ALM for implementations is also ready, so it can support you in all use cases you need, then you would also do the shift from Solution Manager to Cloud ALM in implementations. So that's also one thing I would like to share with you, which you could consider, moving your operations into Cloud ALM, but still staying for implementation in Solution Manager for a certain period of time until Cloud ALM can also fulfill all the needs in implementation which you need. And then, of course, it would make sense to fully move to Cloud ALM. How do you find out if it fits your needs? I'd like to share two links with you here. The first one is the what's new in SAP Cloud ALM section in the help portal. I already mentioned those links on the slide before, or some slides before. This is basically a constantly updated list of functions which are new in Cloud ALM, because I hope you're aware of the fact that we constantly update Cloud ALM. Technically, internally, we do daily deployments of features. We sort of combine those features in bi-weekly releases, which will go out on the public server or on the server of Cloud ALM, which is accessible for you. And then we sort of do quarterly look backs on what we did and what we released, and we do also calls and share with you what we released in the past quarter. So there's a lot of things going on, and there's a lot of new functionality coming in. So this is one important source for you to find out what Cloud ALM can do for you, what's new in there. The second one is already mentioned as well, is the supported solutions topic. So that's a tool in the SAP Help Portal, which helps you to find out which SAP solutions, like SAP S/4HANA Cloud, SAP S/4HANA On-Premise, SuccessFactors, Concur, Hybris, e-commerce, cloud, whatever there is, are supported by Cloud ALM, and in which degree and which depth that they are supported. So these tools are very handy to help you shape the decision, because you can learn from them what Cloud ALM can do for you, what it's capable of doing already, and what will be coming in the future. I briefly mentioned the transition, and that's a fairly new slide, which I think Mark shared in the keynote as well on Tuesday. We are currently working on, let's say, providing transition use cases, providing information for you how to move from Solution Manager to Cloud ALM. This is also what we're working on heavily in discussions with our user groups. Especially, we have an ongoing series of meetings with the German-speaking user group to provide some input on what could be possible scenarios of transitioning from Solution Manager to Cloud ALM. We will offer some services which help you to find out what's the timeline for your transition. If you are all ready to go, like a readiness check or a roadmap service, we will also, or you would then do a new implementation, like requesting your tenant, transferring data, and also we will offer a guided implementation for Cloud ALM. And we will also offer some sort of go live check or Cloud ALM launch check. So please keep in mind that's not available yet. We will provide these services, and we will provide more information in the future for transitioning to Cloud ALM. When we talk about moving to Cloud ALM, as I said, we will support this transition. This transition has different aspects. As I said, in implementation, you might want to take over your existing process models, your test cases, and so on. In operations, it doesn't really make sense to bring all the data with you. It's easier also for you to set up a new operations model in Cloud ALM and run it from there. What we will not offer in any case is a federation between the tools. Federation means data exchange between Cloud ALM and Solution Manager on an ongoing basis. Like you update a process in Solution Manager, then it will be automatically updating Cloud ALM. That's not what we're looking for. That's also not behind the single source of truth approach, which we follow with ALM for many, many years. We will support you in moving from one tool to the other. And yes, there might be a period of time where those tools will run in parallel, but we will not offer a federation or continuous data exchange in those tools. We're working with customers on that topics, and so please stay tuned. There will come more information about this next year, early next year, I think. So now we have reached the end of the session. From key takeaways, this is rather generic. Of course, we have our 3 offerings. Please check out Cloud ALM if you are on your way on your cloud journey. If you are looking for a more standardized approach to do ALM. If you're looking for like fast onboarding, no operations costs, and so on. Focused run, fully valid for large scale landscapes for service providers. This is, let's say, a little bit different part of the story. And Solution Manager, if you are heavily on Solution Manager, we fully protect your investments. You can use Solution Manager. This is what's supporting you in operations and implementing your solutions. But at the same time, I would always recommend to keep an eye on Cloud ALM if it makes sense for you to go there from an overall perspective. So that was what I wanted to share with you for the session. Now I see there's a question Q&A. Before I go there, I just want to highlight the following session in this track at the ALM Summit EMEA. So at 2 p.m. Central European time, Mark Thier will, and he has mentioned that sometimes in the keynote, he will elaborate a little more on, are you ready to move from Solution Manager to Cloud ALM? So that's the session which goes more into the details on which functional parts of Solution Manager will be represented in which way in Cloud ALM. So if you're interested in that topic a little bit more deeper from a functional perspective and also from a landscape perspective, please join the session at 2 p.m. From Mark. And now I'll just have a short look at the chat or the questions. So there's one question, which let me just briefly read that. We've configured 170 systems in the Solman 7.2 SP12 production system and 57 systems in the Solman 7.2 SP12 sandbox. The Solman systems are mainly used for early watch, system monitoring, and self-monitoring. Do you recommend to migrate all these systems to Cloud ALM for operations? So the answer here I can clearly do is it depends. And this might not be the answer you would have fully expected from me in that scenario, but let's say with this large footprint of systems, and if this is running perfectly fine on Solution Manager, I would not see a need of changing a fully functional setup of monitoring these large numbers of systems. I don't really see, I wouldn't see the need for that. If you would have issues in operating those systems with Solution Manager, if your team cannot fulfill due to workload or whatever, if running Solution Manager itself might be an issue for you, then you might maybe consider doing so. But currently, in this scenario, if everything's running smoothly, I would not recommend moving to Cloud ALM because there's currently, I don't see a need to do so if everything's running fine. So that would be my answer to this question. There's one more question coming in. If you have only early watch alert and maintenance scenario running, no other scenarios, can this be covered by Cloud ALM? I would say in general, yes. It a little bit depends on which solution you are running, because if it's an on-premise, like if it's an S4 on-premise, then I would say yes, please check out Cloud ALM. If it's some other SAP solutions on-premise, then it depends, because Cloud ALM supports on-premise solutions, but not all SAP solutions are supported on-premise. So in this case, I would recommend you to go to the link I shared earlier with the supported solutions, and there make sure that all solutions you're running are covered by Cloud ALM, and then, yeah, going to Cloud ALM could be a fair and interesting use case for you if you only have this little footprint in early watch alert and maintenance running. So there's one question coming in. I like that question. As Cloud ALM will become more mature over the next year, does it also mean that Solution Manager on-premise won't become improved or updated anymore? I have a very clear answer to this question, and the answer is no. This does not mean that Solution Manager will not be improved or updated anymore. It's vice versa. If you have followed the keynote, we currently have a customer connection phase ongoing where customers can hand in improvement requests for Solution Manager, which then will follow the usual processes of being evaluated and hopefully will find their way into the product. So Solution Manager has a clear commitment, as also Mark here said in the keynote. Solution Manager is in full maintenance, in mainstream maintenance mode until 2027, which is 6 more years. And so more than half a decade, to put it into perspective. And Solution Manager will continuously be updated. There will be features coming. We listen to customers for which features we need to bring into the tool. So the clear answer to this question is no. Solution Manager will be part of our strategy. It will be a strategic product also for the future. And maybe to add on that, as Mark in the keynote said as well, after 2027, Solution Manager will still continue to exist. It will only not be in mainstream maintenance anymore, but there will be different maintenance offerings which you can use, you can choose from. And of course, obviously, Solution Manager will not stop to work on the 1st of January 2028. So this tool will be around. It will continue to work even after the mainstream maintenance has ended. So one more feedback coming in. We recorded your statement, hope the best. That's fine. I'm perfectly fine with that. And if you have followed the keynote, I'm fully in line with also official statements from senior management here. So we are completely confident with that one. So currently no more questions. I see we're also a little bit over time of the official end of the session. Thank you very much. Thanks for joining. Thanks for your questions. I hope you enjoy the rest of the event. As I said, there will be much more sessions coming today. I also would like to recommend the inspirational keynote later today. So at 4 p.m. Waldorf time, I would really recommend to join Herbert Schuster for his inspirational talk on, I need to read it out, business optimization in times of rising complexity where human intelligence is no longer sufficient. I'm really interested in what this means. So please join us also in the keynote later on, and hopefully see you again in another session at the ALM Summit 2021. Thank you very much.